Baramu was a respected and successful trader in the quiet village of Korutu. Everyone admired him, not just for his wealth, but for how he carried himself with confidence and charm. Beside him stood his wife, Liana, a graceful and soft-spoken woman who was known far and wide for her kindness, patience, and unwavering devotion to her husband. Villagers often pointed to them as the perfect couple, the kind of love story every young girl dreamed of having. Whenever Baramu and Liana walked together through the market, people smiled and whispered, "That is true love." But behind those warm smiles and peaceful evenings, something was changing. Deep inside, Baramu had begun to feel restless. He was growing bored of the routine, bored of the peaceful life he once cherished. Liana's gentle ways, which once melted his heart, now seemed too calm for the thrill he secretly desired. Though Liana still served him with love and care, Baramu's eyes began to wander. He didn't speak of it, but in his heart, he started craving something different, something more exciting. What the village didn't see was the slow crack forming in what looked like the perfect marriage. And soon, that crack would grow into a storm no one saw coming. Baramu's life took a sharp turn the day he met Salita. It happened by chance. He had traveled to the neighboring village of Godona for a business deal, not knowing that fate was waiting for him there in the form of a woman who would change everything. Salita was unlike any woman he had ever seen. Her eyes were sharp and full of mystery, her voice smooth like melted honey, and her movements graceful, yet bold. She wore confidence like a second skin, and the way she looked at Baramu made him feel like he was the most powerful man alive. One conversation turned into two, then three, and soon, Baramu found himself completely captivated by her. Salita knew the power she held. She smiled just enough to keep him wanting more. She laughed at his jokes, even the dry ones, and told him things he had been longing to hear, things Liana never said, not because she didn't love him, but because she was humble and simple. Salita, on the other hand, made him feel like a king, even when he didn't deserve it. Her charm wasn't loud, but it was dangerous, like a soft fire burning underneath. Baramu started going to Godona more often, using business as an excuse. What began as casual flirtation soon grew into a full-blown affair. He would sneak away from home for hours, sometimes even days, just to be with Salita. He showered her with gifts, bracelets, dresses, perfumes, while Liana at home wore the same old wrappers and cooked his meals with love. But he didn't see that anymore. His heart had wandered too far. At home, the warmth in his eyes began to fade. He no longer laughed with Liana the way he used to. The kind words became fewer, and the loving gestures vanished. He stopped noticing the effort Liana put into making his favorite meals, or the way she waited patiently every evening for his return. He began coming home late, always with a new excuse. Business ran late. The roads were blocked. A customer needed help. Lies wrapped in smooth words. And Liana, though heartbroken, kept quiet. Baramu no longer looked at his wife the way a man looks at the woman he loves. Instead, he saw her as a burden, too quiet, too plain, too predictable. The man who once held her hand in front of everyone now barely noticed her presence. Liana felt the coldness every day like a shadow in her home. She asked gentle questions, trying to understand, but Baramu brushed her off with irritation. Deep inside, she knew something was wrong, but her heart refused to believe it. While Liana stayed home caring for him with devotion, Baramu spent his energy on a woman who only loved what he gave her, his money, his attention, and his weakness. But he was too blinded to see it. He thought he was living a thrilling, secret life, playing a game he believed he could control. What he didn't know was that every secret has a price, and every lie leaves a trail. And one day, that trail would lead him to tears he never imagined he'd shed. Liana was not blind. She might have been quiet, but her heart could feel what words could not explain. The man she once called her best friend, her love, her husband, he had changed. His eyes no longer held the same warmth. His smile no longer reached her. The way he touched her, spoke to her, or even looked at her, it was all different now. She felt the distance growing, like a wall slowly building between them. At first, she tried to convince herself that it was stress from business or the weight of responsibilities. But with each passing day, her heart whispered a truth she did not want to hear. Baramu was slipping away from her. Still, Liana did not fight, nor did she raise her voice. She cooked his food, cleaned his clothes, and waited patiently for him each evening. Even when he came home with a scent that was not hers, she smiled through her tears and served him with the same hands that were once held with love. She cried silently at night, her pillow soaking in the pain that she could not share with anyone, but her spirit remained calm. She believed that storms, no matter how strong, eventually pass. One afternoon, unable to carry the weight in her heart any longer, Liana visited her elderly aunt Makira, a wise woman who had seen many seasons of life. Makira welcomed her with open arms, noticing the sadness that hid behind her forced smile. Liana rested her head on her aunt's lap like a little girl, and for the first time in weeks, she spoke her truth. She told Makira about the coldness in her home, the silence in Baramu's eyes, and the ache in her heart. Makira listened with calm eyes, gently stroking Liana's hair. She didn't react with anger or shock. Instead, she held Liana's hands and said, "My child, sometimes the devil wears perfume and speaks sweet words, but truth always reveals itself in time. You are a woman of peace. Do not let pain make you bitter. Pray, stay strong, and let wisdom guide your steps." Liana nodded quietly. Her heart still felt heavy, but her mind began to open. That night, as she returned home, something inside her shifted. She had spent too long waiting for Baramu to return to the man he once was. But now she decided, if he had chosen another path, she would not chase him. Instead, she would prepare something far more powerful than anger, a gift, not of revenge, but of truth, a gift that would open his eyes, whether he was ready or not. Liana began planning silently. She didn't argue, she didn't question, and she didn't confront him. She simply smiled more, served him better, and acted like nothing had changed. But behind that smile, she was carefully crafting a plan, something that would shake the ground beneath Baramu's feet, something that would speak louder than any words she could ever say, a gift that would carry all her pain, all his lies, and all the truth he refused to face. No one knew what she was planning, not even Makira, but deep inside, Liana knew. When the time came, her gift would not just be a surprise. It would be a lesson that would echo through his soul, long after the last tear dropped from his eyes. Baramu had fallen deep into the arms of his secret life. What started as a spark with Salita had turned into a dangerous fire. He was no longer just sneaking away for moments of pleasure. He was now building an entire second life, wrapped in lies and deception. And to keep that life burning, he needed money, more money than usual. Salita wasn't like Liana. She didn't care for simple meals or quiet moments. She wanted gold, silk dresses, perfumes from distant lands, and expensive nights filled with luxury. And Baramu, desperate to keep her happy, was willing to give her everything, even if it meant robbing his own home. He started lying to Liana more than ever. Each time she asked about the sudden shortage of food money, or why he hadn't brought home any goods from his trips, he would sigh deeply and shake his head. "Business is hard these days," he'd say. "Traders are cheating me. Customers are not paying." Liana, though suspicious, kept quiet. She simply nodded and prayed in silence. But her heart was slowly breaking. She could feel something wasn't right, but she still chose peace over confrontation. As the weeks passed, Baramu became reckless. His spending on Salita grew wild. He began borrowing money from friends and lying about it. He even sold some of his shop goods at a loss just to buy her more gifts. But the worst came one morning when Baramu did something that shocked even the ancestors. He took his late father's sacred necklace, the one his father had gifted to Liana on their wedding day. It was a symbol of honor, a blessing from his lineage. Liana kept it safely in a special wooden box, never wearing it, but always cherishing its meaning. One evening, while Liana was at the stream fetching water, Baramu opened the box, took the necklace, and pawned it to a wealthy trader from another village. He used the money to buy Salita a golden bracelet she had been eyeing for weeks. He felt proud when she smiled and kissed him, not knowing that the price he had paid was far greater than gold. It was his family's respect and his wife's honor. But in his blinded state, he didn't care. Salita was all he could see. Meanwhile, the village was no longer silent. Gossip began to spread like wildfire. People noticed how often Baramu traveled, how he returned with nothing, and how Salita had been seen wearing lavish gifts. Whispers filled the market, at the stream, and even under the baobab tree where elders gathered. "Baramu is no longer the man he used to be," they said. "His wife Liana must be suffering in silence." But Liana, holding her dignity like a queen, walked through the village with her head high and her heart heavy. She heard the whispers. She saw the pity in people's eyes, but she pretended not to know. She continued her daily chores, greeting everyone with grace, while inside, her pain grew deeper. She could have shouted, she could have confronted him, But instead, she waited, calmly, quietly, and patiently, because she knew something no one else knew. Her gift was coming, and when it arrived, Baramu would not just be shocked, he would be shattered. Liana, though hurting deeply, carried herself with quiet strength. She had made up her mind. Baramu needed to see the truth, not through arguments or tears, but through something unforgettable. So, she began her preparations silently. The pain in her heart had now turned into a powerful purpose. It was time to prepare the gift, one that would speak louder than any words ever could. Early one morning, Liana walked to the edge of the village to meet Elufo, a skilled local craftsman known for his fine woodwork and creative carvings. Elufo was surprised when Liana approached him. She was always gentle and soft-spoken, but that day, there was something different in her eyes, something sharp, something bold. "I want to prepare a special gift for my husband's birthday," she said calmly, "but I want it to be something unique, something meaningful." Elufo agreed immediately, curious about what she had in mind. Liana handed him a small scroll, with the design she had secretly drawn, a box, beautifully crafted, with hidden compartments and carvings of symbolic images. It wasn't an ordinary gift box. Every detail carried a message. Each corner of the box would hold a secret, a symbol of love, betrayal, patience, and pain. But she didn't tell Elufo the deeper meaning. She simply smiled and said, "You will see." While Elufo worked on the wooden box, Liana took another quiet step. She visited Tobiah, an old herbalist who lived near the forest path. Tobiah was known for her powerful natural remedies, secret herbs, and spiritual knowledge passed down from generations. Liana asked for a mixture, not a poison, not anything harmful, but something special. She wanted a scent, a herb that would leave a lasting impression, something that could awaken memories and senses when used. Tobiah gave her a blend of herbs with a strong aroma, used in ancient times to cleanse hearts and clear minds. Liana planned to place it inside the gift box, not to harm Baramu, but to remind him of what he had forgotten, of what he had destroyed. Soon, word began to spread across the village of Kurutu. "Liana is preparing a special birthday surprise for her husband," people whispered. "Maybe she's making a romantic gift to win his heart again." Some thought she was trying to save her marriage. Others admired her loyalty, despite everything she was going through. No one knew the truth behind her calm face or the storm brewing beneath her soft words. Liana didn't say much. She simply smiled and nodded when asked about it. She visited the market more often now, picking materials, choosing colorful fabrics, and collecting items that looked like part of a celebration. From the outside, it looked like she was planning something joyful, but deep inside, her heart was steady. This was not a celebration. It was a silent message, a powerful reminder, a moment of truth wrapped in kindness. Each night, after Baramu returned home and fell asleep without even asking how her day was, Liana sat alone in the kitchen, writing little notes, sewing tiny details, and praying softly. The gift was almost ready, and when the day arrived, it would not just be a birthday. It would be the day Baramu finally received everything he had given: pain, betrayal, and silence, wrapped in one unforgettable package. Baramu had changed completely. His love for Liana had faded into coldness, and now his heart beat only for Salita. He no longer saw Liana as a part of his future, only as a shadow from the past he wanted to erase. But instead of telling her the truth directly, Baramu chose a deceitful path, pushed by Salita's wicked whispers. Salita, cunning and full of tricks, had grown tired of being a secret lover. She wanted the house, the respect, the title of wife. "If you truly love me, Baramu," she said one day, her voice soft but sharp, "then why is that woman still in your home? You say she means nothing, but your actions say otherwise." Her words stung Baramu's pride. He wanted to prove his love for Salita, and he was ready to take the next cruel step, get rid of Liana. But Baramu knew he couldn't simply throw Liana out. The villagers still respected her. If he acted too harshly, tongues would wag, and he didn't want to be seen as the bad man. So he decided to dress his betrayal in kindness. One evening, as Liana sat peeling yam by the fire, Baramu approached her with fake concern. "Liana," he began gently, "I've been thinking. You've been working so hard, and you look tired. Maybe it's time you took a break. Why don't you go stay with your Aunt Mokira in the next village for a few weeks? Rest, breathe, enjoy some peace." Liana paused and looked at him quietly. Her hands stopped moving, but her face remained calm. She saw right through him. She knew Baramu was lying. He wasn't sending her away for her own rest. He was making space for another woman. And yet, instead of arguing or questioning, Liana did something unexpected. She smiled softly and nodded. "That sounds like a good idea," she said gently. "Maybe I do need some rest." Baramu was surprised by her easy acceptance. He had expected resistance, maybe even tears. But Liana's calm response made him feel victorious. He thought his plan was working perfectly. In his mind, he was already imagining Salita walking through the front door, sitting where Liana used to sit, sleeping in the bed that once held memories of his marriage. He believed he had won. What he didn't know was that Liana had already seen this moment coming. She had been watching everything: his lies, his secret meeting, his coldness. She had known for a long time that Baramu's heart had drifted, but what he hadn't seen was the power behind her silence. While he was planning to replace her, she was preparing something far greater. The gift was ready. The moment was near. As Baramu moved around the house, secretly packing things for Liana's journey, Liana quietly packed something else: dignity, wisdom, and grace. She walked through the home with a calm that confused even Baramu, but deep in her heart, she knew the storm was about to hit. She didn't need to fight. She didn't need to scream. She was going to let the truth speak in the most unforgettable way. And while Baramu believed he was pushing her out of his life, he didn't realize he was walking straight into the lesson of his lifetime. A lesson that would shake his soul, break his pride, and leave him crying, because sometimes the quietest woman carries the loudest storm. The day finally arrived, Baramu's birthday. The house was decorated. The aroma of food filled the air, and cheerful music played in the background. Baramu was proud. He stood tall, feeling like a king, but not because of Liana. His heart now beat for Salita, who stood beside him in a beautiful dress, smiling proudly like the new queen of the home. Villagers gathered, clapping, singing, and offering blessings. Everyone was excited for the celebration, but the most anticipated moment was Liana's return and her mysterious gift. People had heard whispers about it for weeks. "Liana is bringing something special for Baramu," they said. "It must be something grand." Even Salita chuckled confidently, believing Liana's gift would be some desperate attempt to win her husband back. Baramu, too, wore a smug smile. He thought whatever Liana had planned wouldn't matter. In his mind, she was already out of his life. Then, as the sun reached its peak, Liana arrived. She walked in gracefully, dressed in a calm, beautiful outfit, carrying a single box wrapped in golden cloth with intricate patterns. Everyone turned to look at her. Some expected tears or bitterness, but Liana's face held no sadness. It was calm, almost too calm. She stepped forward, greeted the guests politely, then walked toward Baramu with the box in her hands. "Happy birthday, Baramu," she said softly. "This is my gift to you." Baramu gave a half smile, still thinking he had won. He took the box from her and placed it on the table. "Open it!" Someone in the crowd shouted playfully. Others clapped and laughed. Salita stood close, peeking over Baramu's shoulder, waiting to see what was inside. Maybe jewelry, expensive fabric, or love letters. But what came next left everyone stunned. Baramu untied the golden cloth and opened the lid. At first, he looked confused. Inside the box was not gold, not riches, not any romantic gift. It was something far more powerful. At the top layer lay the necklace, his father's necklace, the same one he had secretly pawned to buy gifts for Salita. Liana had quietly bought it back from the pawn shop and returned it in this box. Beneath it was a letter, written in Liana's delicate handwriting. Baramu picked it up, his hands slightly trembling. He began to read aloud. "To the man I once called my husband, this is not a gift of love. It is a gift of truth. This necklace was a symbol of your father's blessings, yet you sold it to please another woman. Beneath your lies, I remained silent, not because I was weak, but because I was waiting for the right moment to show you who I truly am." Baramu's smile faded. Salita stepped back, her face tightening. Liana continued calmly, "And now, the final part of your gift." Everyone leaned in. Inside the box was a small mirror, carefully placed beneath the letter. A mirror, simple, clear, and powerful. "Look into it," the letter said. "You will see the real gift, yourself. A man who traded love for lust, respect for betrayal, and loyalty for temporary pleasure. This mirror reflects not your face, but your choices." The crowd went silent. Baramu looked into the mirror, and for the first time, saw not pride, but shame. Liana stepped away, leaving him holding the box that held not riches, but regret. The party had begun with laughter, but now it ended in whispers, and the man who thought he had everything was now left with nothing but a reflection he could no longer admire. As the silence grew heavier in the room, Baramu still stood frozen, holding the box in his trembling hands. But that wasn't the end. Liana wasn't finished yet. She stepped forward again, calm as ever, her voice steady like a river just before a storm. "Before I leave," she said softly, "there's more inside that box. Things you thought I never knew, but I knew everything." Baramu slowly reached back into the box, his fingers shaking, and pulled out another stack of papers, receipts, old letters, and photographs. His eyes widened in horror. Each item exposed a part of his double life. There were receipts from expensive gifts he had bought for Salita, love letters written in his own handwriting, photos, clear, undeniable, of him with Salita in quiet corners, holding hands, laughing, sometimes even in a nearby lodge. Gasps filled the air. The villagers leaned closer, stunned. People covered their mouths in disbelief. Murmurs turned into loud whispers. Salita's face turned pale. She tried to move back slowly, hoping no one noticed her. But Liana wasn't done yet. She reached into the box and pulled out one last item, a small leather-bound book. "This," she said, holding it high, "is my diary. Every time Baramu came home late, every time he lied about his business, every strange scent on his clothes, I wrote it all down, page by page. I waited and watched, not because I was weak, but because I wanted the truth to speak for itself one day. And that day is today." Then, without breaking her calm, Liana began to read aloud from the diary. Her voice echoed through the gathering like a song of heartbreak. Each entry held a piece of her pain. Day 14. He told me he had to travel to buy goods. He came home with perfume on his shirt and lipstick on his collar. Day 21. He sold my father-in-law's necklace. He told me it was a business emergency, but I later saw a new bracelet on Salita's wrist. Day 30. I cried alone in our bed while he laughed with her in another woman's arms. Tears welled in the eyes of many villagers. Some women began to shake their heads in pity, others in anger. The truth was no longer hidden. It stood tall, dressed in Liana's strength and quiet dignity. Baramu looked around helplessly, his face pale with shame. His pride had been shattered into pieces. His lies, now written and spoken in front of the entire village, pierced deeper than any sword. And as the pages turned, his heart felt heavier. The woman he thought was soft and fragile had just shown him what true power looked like. Then came Liana's final words. She looked directly at Baramu, her eyes calm, but fierce. "You thought you were clever. You thought I would cry and beg. But today I do not cry for a man who betrayed my heart. I stand tall because I gave you loyalty, and you gave me lies. And now I give you truth, wrapped in paper, ink, and pain. A gift you can never return." The crowd erupted in shock and whispers. Salita, now exposed, panicked and tried to sneak away, but eyes followed her every move. Her confidence had turned into shame. No one clapped. No one smiled. The celebration had turned into a courtroom, and Liana's words were the final judgment. And in that moment, the man who thought he had everything was left with receipts, tears, and a mirror full of regret. Baramu's hands trembled as he clutched the last page of Liana's diary. His eyes, once full of pride, now overflowed with tears. The weight of shame pressed down on him like a mountain. He looked around the crowd, hoping to find a single face that still respected him, but all he saw were eyes filled with disappointment and judgment. The same villagers who once admired him now whispered behind their hands, shaking their heads at the man who had destroyed his own home with lies and selfishness. His knees gave way beneath him and he fell to the ground, hard. There was no strength left in him. He stretched his hands toward Liana, crying out her name like a child lost in the dark. "Liana, please, forgive me. I was blind. I made a mistake. Please don't leave me like this." His voice cracked with desperation, echoing through the courtyard, but Liana didn't even flinch. She stood still for a moment, her eyes calm but filled with pain. The woman who once silently bore his betrayal now stood tall in her strength. She looked at him one last time, not with anger, but with something deeper, a look that said, "I loved you, but you destroyed that love with your own hands." Baramu tried to crawl closer, begging over and over, his tears falling onto the very ground where he once strutted with pride. But Liana didn't go back. She didn't speak. She simply turned around, lifted her chin with quiet grace, and began to walk away. That walk was the most powerful thing the villagers had ever seen. She didn't scream, didn't curse him. She just walked away, leaving him with the true gift he never expected, the gift of disgrace, shame, and a heart shattered by his own betrayal. Salitar had already disappeared from the crowd, running like a thief in the night. No one stopped her. No one cared. She had come in as a storm but left as dust, forgotten and unwanted. As Liana walked toward the village gates, her elderly Aunt Makira stood there waiting, her arms open, her heart proud. She embraced Liana tightly, whispering, "You did well, my child, you did well." And for the first time in many moons, Liana smiled, not because she had won, but because she had freed herself from a cage of silent pain. The villagers watched in awe as Liana left Karutu village with dignity, her head held high. Some women whispered prayers for her, others nodded with admiration. Baramu remained on his knees, sobbing, holding the box filled with the proof of his own destruction. That box was no longer just a gift, it was a mirror, showing him the man he had become. As Liana and Makira boarded the cart headed for the city, the wind carried away the last sound from behind, Baramu's broken cries, fading into the distance. The man who thought he had it all, who thought he could play with hearts and walk away untouched, had just been left with nothing but the bitter taste of his own betrayal. And the woman he thought would be weak, she left behind a legacy of strength, grace, and unforgettable truth. Not long after Liana's powerful departure, everything around Baramu began to crumble like dry leaves in the wind. The very next morning, he woke up to an empty house. Salitar, the woman he had ruined his marriage for, had vanished without a trace. Along with her went the last of his savings, the money he had secretly hidden in a wooden box beneath the floor, gone. She had cleaned him out completely. Even the little gold ring he had hidden in his tunic pocket was missing. Salita had not only taken his money, she had taken his dignity, his dreams, and the last piece of his pride. At first, Baramu tried to pretend it was a misunderstanding. He wandered to Gadona, hoping to find her, but no one had seen her. It was as if she had vanished into thin air. Day after day, he waited, pacing by the roadside, hoping she would return, but she never did. News of her betrayal spread like wildfire through the village of Karutu, and soon, people began whispering not just about Salita, but about Baramu's fall from grace. Then, his business started to collapse. Suppliers who once respected him refused to trade with him anymore. Customers disappeared. No one wanted to buy from the man who had disrespected his loyal wife. Even the apprentice boys at the market mocked him behind his back. One day, his stall was overturned by a furious customer who claimed Baramu had sold him fake goods. Baramu had no defense. He had used all his money trying to impress Salita. Now his debts grew, and the shame burned deeper. Each day, Baramu looked more like a shadow than a man. His clothes were torn, his eyes hollow, his once proud walk now a slow, defeated drag. Children stopped greeting him. Neighbors crossed the road to avoid him. Friends turned their backs, shaking their heads in disappointment. The same villagers who once admired him now treated him like a ghost, someone who had lost not just wealth, but his place in the hearts of the people. And in his hand, always, was Liana's diary, the same one he had once opened with disbelief and regret. Now, he clutched it like a lifeline, rereading her words again and again, as if trying to find healing in the pages. But those pages only reminded him of what he had thrown away. Every line written in her soft handwriting pierced his heart like a thorn. Her pain, her patience, her loyalty, it haunted him. Sometimes he would sit under the old mango tree in the center of the village, reading the diary aloud to himself, mumbling between tears. Some villagers watched silently, others walked away, uncomfortable with his madness. Baramu had become a man empty of everything: money, love, respect, even hope. Karma had done its work. What he thought was pleasure turned into poison. What he thought was love turned into loss. He had betrayed the one woman who truly cared for him, only to be destroyed by the very woman he chose over her. In the end, he was left with nothing but memories, tears, and a diary full of truth. A painful reminder that no matter how strong a lie is, it cannot stand against the power of a broken heart's truth. Far away from the ruins of her old life, Liana stepped into a new chapter with quiet strength and a heart full of hope. She had left Karutu, not with bitterness, but with the wisdom of experience and the fire of determination burning in her soul. With her Aunt Makira's blessings and the love of a few loyal friends, She arrived in the city ready to begin again, not as a broken woman, but as a reborn one. Liana reached out to Tobiah, the wise herbalist who had once helped her prepare that unforgettable gift. Together, they started a small herbal business. At first, it was just a little wooden stall at the edge of the city market, selling handmade remedies, healing teas, and natural oils. But word of Tobiah's ancient knowledge and Liana's gentle service began to spread quickly. People admired how Liana spoke with warmth, how she treated every customer with care, and how her presence calmed even the most restless soul. Soon, their little stall turned into a busy shop, then 2 shops, then a training center, where Liana began teaching young women the art of healing herbs and natural wellness. People in the city called her the woman with golden hands. She wasn't just building a business, she was building a legacy. Every woman she helped, every young girl she mentored, carried a part of her strength forward. But it wasn't just her business that grew, it was her spirit. Liana glowed with a quiet beauty, not the beauty of clothes or jewels, but the beauty of resilience. The city respected her not because of her story, but because of her grace after heartbreak. She never spoke ill of Baramu, never acted like a victim. She simply rose higher, walking her path with dignity. Back in Korutu, her story became a whisper on every lip, a lesson in every home. Elders told their daughters, "Be like Liana, soft in heart, but strong in spirit." Young girls repeated her story under the moonlight, inspired by the tale of a woman who didn't seek revenge with fire, but with silence, truth, and self-respect. Even the name of her shop became famous, Liana's Gift. Not many people knew what the name truly meant, but those who remembered the story nodded quietly, knowing the meaning ran deeper than any words could explain. The same villagers who once pitied her now held her name with honor. They told visitors, "She is the one, the wife who gave a gift that made a man cry forever." Years passed, and Liana only rose higher. She was invited to speak at women's gatherings, asked to share her story with struggling wives, and celebrated for her strength. Yet she remained humble, always remembering where she came from and who she once was. A woman whose love was pure, but whose dignity was even purer. And somewhere, in the quiet corners of Korutu, Baramu still sat, clutching her diary, weeping for a woman he could never have back. His tears were not just of regret, but of realization that he had lost not just a wife, but a queen in spirit. And the world would never let him forget, because legends are not always born in war or fire. Sometimes, they are born in silence, in strength, and in the power of walking away with your head held high. If this story touched your heart, take a moment to reflect on the silent strength of a woman who chose dignity over revenge, grace over chaos, and self-respect over betrayal. Liana's journey reminds us that even in the darkest moments, a heart full of love and a spirit full of courage can rise above pain and shine brighter than ever before. Sometimes, the most powerful response is not anger, but silence, not revenge, but growth. And sometimes, the most unforgettable gift is the truth, wrapped in calm, handed with grace, and remembered forever. If you've ever been hurt, betrayed, or made to feel less than you deserve, remember Liana. Remember her strength. Remember her story. Because you too have the power to walk away with your head held high and turn your pain into purpose. Let this story be a reminder that karma never...
सही सही तो था बाय बाय क्या पिया है तो ही घर बाय बाय के थका पिया है
मसरूफियत को नहीं ना भेजे यहाँ से ही काम न पता लगे ना और ही घर तुझे नहीं जा मैं को नहीं लगता कि जिसे
हाँ हर शे फ्री मिलती पे मतलब खाना पीने दी ना कोई टेंशन है ना कोई शे दी
हाँ रोटी टुक्कर चाय पानी दूध हर शे मिल रही है जल्दी समूह जल्दी उठो ना कोई उठाना नहीं कच्चे उठा लगा हमने क्या
सही सही और गोश्त खाने गए थे
ठीक है ना
नेट कड़ा लवाई मैं
नेट मेरे को डिवाइस आए टू
अच्छा सिंपैथी पैकेज
मोर डांगे डिवाइस हम लोग के लिए एक ही जैन सिंपैथी पे आएंगे गांव में
मीक तो अपलोडिंग कर रहे थे
वैसे करेगा कि एक जाना चले लगा
स्लैब तो चली पेंको ना स्लैब तो कुछ चली पेंको ना
अच्छा नहीं स्लैब तक भी हमें
अफ्रीकन टेल जो है अफ्रीकन टेल के नाम चली था
अफ्रीकन टेल में चूज करने होती है काम
वो दी क्या पोजीशन है मोनेटाइज है क्या बताइए
उन्होंने तमिया वाला किया होता
अच्छा सही है बेहतर है कुटिया काम को सिताने नवीद यासर पतन भी सुहेल अमजद नाले जुल्फकार है जुल्फकार हाँ अमजद जे हरिया वदन रात ये लिए गए न तो कोई एक बार को हरिया वदन कैसे
गोश्त लावा गया लगे
उठाऊं का लिए था गेम लिए तो हरिया
अच्छा
हाँ जुल्फकार को हरिया वदन यासर ते भी अमजद हरिया वदन पता नहीं को सुहेल को ये रोने में खाते पड़े होते हैं
अच्छा
7 मिनट वैसे 4
चलो अच्छा ठीक है करो
चोरी बोल रहे हैं यार
रुआ में थोड़ा जिया
देवड़े वे देसो सही
हाँ देसो सही हो नवीता देसी हो ना नवीता
चौके देवड़े वे
तो ना लाइक की तो ना कमेंट की
है सजी
6 महीने बाद
अच्छा चलो
मेरा वो हाथ से जो रियो होने रोल ऑन स्टेटस है ना मैं पीछे नहीं लगता हूं थोड़ा
लाइक कर अरे बर्बाद
ये यार ना वाला कोई यो नहीं आता बट ये हमारा आज
कौन है
6 मिनट बाद
6 महीने बाद
स्टेटस
यार ये भी
जियो ओसम
दिखाओ
क्या बात है
तो रात भेरी पे हमें वो मसात राम दा काम नहीं ये क्या है जल्दी मरसो मुकाबला की मरसो मैं क्या उस्ताद हूं क्या थिया जी जी बढ़िया चेक करने व्यू चैट
जी ये ठीक है 10 के रखा हुआ है
हमारी डाली है ना का
मोड़ मतलब तो क्या ना सब प्यार लगा
जी
चैट व्यू
जी यार
ये तो चल रही है फॉर व्यू चल
बाहर जो तक क्या चलता है
मिनट चल रहा है
कहना
और 5 मिनट है शेयर
सारे ही नहीं आने मैं सिम रिप्लाई से काम करता
वो चैट जीपीटी ना चैट जीपीटी भाई मेल दे तो मैं तो भाई बोल रहा है तो छोड़
कमाल है
ये आप है ना आप
निसी बैठा ना का
चैट छोड़ी मैं एक तो बोला था को ना यार बना था हाय चैट जीपीटी
कीड़ा
था ये टाइटल
मेरे को पूछा था तस्वीर शुरू कर देते हैं
तू देख दिमाग
ये पढ़ा है नहीं पढ़ा सारी
अच्छा याद है
देख बुरे दाल पे बना दे चो
नहीं खुले खावा से
दूल्हा थोड़े से ना
चुप।
बैठ जा वहां अपना
यार ना मारा करो शोर कोई यहीं चाय बैठे हुए
शोर नहीं
बाहर
ठहर।
चाय बैठे हुए
ये ठहर
दिमाग खराब करेंगे
दाब ले
आगे ठहर
ओ यहीं दा पुत्र है बेच चालू समर दा ओ तेरा भेरा एक कौन
फिटा में
ओ नहीं तू चुप पर पता है ना अब आधे काम करेंगे अब खाना पीना ते भोग दा बैठा हूं
चाचू समर ना कि तू आग समर बिरा
गट्टू उंदे को खावे
खा मैंने
अच्छा अपना खाना उठाया खाना और आराम कर मैं खाना